Greetings. Welcome to this special event, which is a side event of the World Food Prize, which is hosted by the Michigan State University's Alliance for African Partnership and Michigan State University and its friends. My name is Lindiwe Majele Sibanda. I'm the director and chair of the African Research University's Alliance Center of Excellence in Sustainable Food Systems, which is hosted by the University of Pretoria in partnership with the University of Nairobi and the University of Ghana. I'm going to be your moderator today on a subject that I am passionate about, the subject of youth, where we are focusing on the role of the youth in building resilient agri-food systems in Africa. I want you to note three key words. It's about the youth, it's about resilient food systems, it's about Africa. I'm excited to have a panel that is going to be bringing firsthand experience on what they are doing for the youth, with the youth. As you all would appreciate, building a sustained and resilient agri-food system in Africa is an intergenerational mandate which demands the active engagement of African youth. We cannot do it without them. We cannot do it for them. We have to do it with them, and they have to lead. With their large numbers, relatively high educational levels, and affinity for digital technology, African youth represent an indispensable resource, which, if properly harnessed, can foster a more resilient and productive agri-food system. However, there are many questions that remain on the effective strategies to harness youth innovativeness and energy. To help provide guidance for policy, this session will discuss evidence-based and pragmatic approaches that could foster productive youth engagements supportive of resilient agri-food systems in our beloved Africa. I have with me a panel of experts drawn from Michigan State University and the Alliance for African Partnership institutions, foundations, youth leaders who will all share their insights, highlighting the relevance of the agri-food system to youth livelihoods, the role of youth in fostering a resilient agri-food system, and salient trends and barriers and promising entry points for policy that could equip our African youth with the right skills, give them the space and resources to effectively contribute to a productive and resilient agri-food system. We are excited by this collaborative effort by all the partners who have given their time, because it is the role of the Michigan State University's Alliance for African Partnership through the African Youth Transformation Platform to ensure that these collaborations are nurtured through research, through capacity building, and advocacy that enhances youth development outcomes. I'm just excited because we are here to share living examples of what is happening in the continent. Allow me to introduce my team one by one, and I just want them, as they introduce themselves, to tell us what is in it for them about the youth. What is their stake in this youth agenda? Let me start with you, Felix Kwame, who is a professor of international development at Michigan State University. Over to you. Please all open your mics for this introductory session. Over to you, Felix.
Thank you very much, Lindiwe, for that introduction to the topic. As Lindiwe indicated, my name is Felix Kwame Yeboah, and in terms of what my stake in this topic is, I would say that I'm a strong believer in youth as a valuable asset and agent for change. So my research work, advocacy, and capacity building efforts largely focus on trying to equip them with the skills, the space, and the resources that they need to effect transformative change, not just in Africa, but across the globe. So thank you.
Thank you
And
very
look
much.
forward to
Thank
the
you very
discussion.
much, Kwame. We look forward to hearing more on the how. You've told us what your passion is, what you do, but we are keen to see the how and what has been the impact of your work. Allow me to move to a dear friend, Betty Kibara. She's the Director, Food Initiative at the Rockefeller Foundation Africa Region Office. Betty, what's your stake in the youth business and what do you bring to this agenda today?
Thanks so much, Lindy, my good friend. And I must say that I'm a mentor and an advocate for the youth because I believe the young people are key to transforming agriculture and food system. I am also a practicing farmer, and I do understand the challenges and opportunities that the youth can also bring to change the agri-food systems. And what I do at the Rockefeller Foundation, I always have a question in my mind: how can the programming of the Rockefeller Foundation also be of use and benefit to the youth? Thank you so much, and I'll be sharing some good examples.
Excellent, thanks, Betty. From Nairobi, we cross over to Malawi. To Sarah Gondwe. Sarah is a business economist and at the faculty, Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources, commonly known as Luana. Sarah, you are talking about youth today. What's your stake?
Mm-hmm. Hello all, Sarah Gondwe here. I am an academician, and I'll start by saying that how we handle the youth today is actually a reflection of our food systems state is like today and how it will be in the future. So the stake for us in there reflects in that we as educators, we are the ones who have the role to be able to bring out that youth who's going to be visionary, effective, and an accountable change agent. So that's where we need to make the dent.
Thank you, thank you. So Sarah, you're going to be speaking on behalf of all the universities because you are saying we as educators. We look forward to that. Let's cross over to the Tony Elemelu Foundation where we have Onye Okolo, who is the Director of Partnerships and Communications. Onye, what's your business in the youth agenda?
Thank you so much, Lindiwe, and again, nice to meet everyone here today. And like she said, my name is Oni and I work at the Tony Elemelu Foundation, supporting African entrepreneurs through our non-returnable grant. And I'm excited to be here because I myself, I'm a young person, and I don't know if you've been following recently, just yesterday, we had the memorial of the EndSARS movement that was very much youth-led. And Nigeria, again, is a growing population of youth. And I find that for me, beyond just work in my daily life, interacting with other young people, there's so much that we're doing and so much that we can continue to do. And so I guess today I'm standing here not just, for the work that we're doing at the foundation, which is really centered on supporting and funding youth, but also as a young person myself who, is also on the receiving end of, effective or ineffective policies. So excited to be here. And once again, nice to meet all of you.
Excellent. As you can see, colleagues, we have an excellent lineup already in the chat. We're being greeted by colleagues from MSU. We're being greeted by colleagues who are in Botswana. The whole world is around us and they have questions. We have New York online. They are watching this session and have questions that they will be posting on the chat. So I'll give you a chance to share your wisdom, but I'll also pull in our audience and ask them to contribute through the chat, any questions, comments, and I'll bring them to the room. Let me start with you, Kwame. I'm keen because when you responded, you said you are the person who does the capacity building and empowerment of youth globally, not just for Africa, but where you sit, you can touch all corners of the world. Why is youth active engagement in efforts of advancing resilience in Africa's agri-food systems critical, not just now, but in our everyday lives? Why do you think this is so critical for us to be spending our time to talk about the subject?
Anyway, thank you very much for that question. I think I would say that youth engagement is necessary for building resilience in the agri-food system, particularly in Africa, for several reasons. And I may give maybe about three reasons. The first is, as we rightly pointed out at the beginning, that Africa is very young. So there cannot be any transformation of the continent without young people. We have over 60% of our population below the age of 25, and young people comprises about 55% of the labor force in most countries. And we also know that this particular generation of young people represent the most highly educated cohort that the continent has ever had. So when you look at their sheer numbers compared to the energy and the relatively high education levels that they have, these young people represent an enormous human resource that, if we can engage with in new and better ways, can help bring about resilience on the continent. I think the second component that I will touch on will also be what you alluded to in terms of resilience is an intergenerational mandate, which means it also demands a cross-generational learning and collaboration. So active engagement of these young people, creating avenues for them to meaningfully engage with older generation, will help to preserve some of these indigenous knowledge that have been created, as well as bringing new knowledge that young people can use to be able to respond to resilient challenges later on in life. And then lastly, we know that resilience will demand new knowledge and innovation. And as I said earlier on, I believe that young people can be an important catalyst for innovation and technology adoption that will help address some of the current as well as future threats of resilience and productivity that we see on the continent. And there are several examples that we have seen even in the digital space, where young people are leveraging digital technology to address various challenges that is challenges within the agri-food system.
Kwame, talk to me. You are telling us why youth engagement is important, and you are sitting with a world view of what is happening. Can you give us an outline? Just if I close my eyes, I want to see what is the current state of youth engagement in Africa's agri-system. I want to get a handle of it so that I can understand if there are problems, if they're doing it right, and where, if there is need for injection of more capacity, we need to plunge in. So what is the current state of youth engagement in Africa's agri-food system from where you're sitting?
I would say that currently we have a large engagement of young people that are in there. And I know that there is a widespread perception of that the average age of African agriculture is about 60 years and over. But currently there's a large number of young people that are engaged in agriculture. So if you look at the employment shares, you realize that about 40 to 60% of youth are engaged in primary agriculture. And if you look at the youth that is about those 15 to 24 years old, if you add those between 24 to 35, which is the young adults, you get an additional 25 to 49% that are engaged in the agricultural sector. And then within the off-farm sector, the off-farm segment of the agri-food system, then you're talking about the processing as well as the distribution. You have an additional 8 to 16% that are engaged in that particular sector. So when you look at the current state of youth engagement, I personally think that there is still a large number of young people that are engaged within the agricultural sector. What is missing is the quality. It's not about the quantity, it's about the quality of young people who have the skill set and access to critical resources who can bring about transformative change in the agriculture sector. That is what seems to be missing. And
okay. Go ahead
Yeah.
and finish, but I'm
And
really
I know that there is a widespread narrative of these young people not being interested in the agricultural sector to begin with. But personally, I've always maintained that the young people do not detest agriculture because we already have a large number of them involved in it. But what they detest is the drudgery and the poverty that is associated with agriculture. And wherever we've seen opportunities opening up for these young people, which is profitable, which is less physically odious, and also require minimum assets to engage in, we've seen young people go in and take advantage of that.
So Kwame, me and you are old, right? I'm not going to call out ages here. And you're telling me this is what they don't like, this is what they don't like. I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. Richard Todosia Ruto, crossing over to you in Kenya, please just lift your, we can't see your head where you're sitting, just sit up so we can see you, that's better. I want to hear from you. You are young, energetic, and doing it because currently you are serving as a whole president of National Youth Bonje Association in Kenya and director of West Pokot Youth Bonje County Forum. Tell us from where you are sitting, what role are youth playing and are they visible? Are they enjoying it? Are they engaged in fostering resilience in Africa's food system? As I ask now, forget what Kwame said. You tell me firsthand from the ground.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about the role of youth in the agri-food system in Africa. Yes, from the horse's mouth, and just bringing the perspective, local perspective, that actually the way Kwame talks that youths are engaging, and many others have been speaking about that youth are engaging in agriculture. Many a times they engage because they lack options, because of poverty. But in their mindset, due to a sustained campaign for a very long time, that agriculture and was kind of painted to be for people, older people, for maybe those who are not learned, and maybe there are people who are not maybe are not good in school. So many youth shifted their minds towards white collar jobs. And when you tell somebody to go and do farming, they would always say that no, that is for maybe my older people, maybe for those people who did not dropouts, kind of. So actually, there was kind of a bad painting of agriculture for a very long time. But now here we are. This reality is facing us. That the traditional methods that we used to systems that used to supply food for our societies are no longer working. Then, with the youths who are already engaged in agriculture, they are not applying the right skills. You find that they're still applying the traditional methods that were used in the past. They are not injecting any professionalism in the agriculture. They are not bringing in new ideas. They are not bringing in what is supposed to be done as of now. You find that many youths who are engaging in agriculture mostly are only doing it at the value chain, the first stage of the value chain. That's only maybe farming and for subsistence purposes and it's all. They don't go up to the level of adding some value additions up to the marketing and all that. Some have not reached that level, which now calls for us all to look into if they are now still practicing what our grandees, our fathers were still doing, then there's actually need to call upon them to upgrade up their games, ensure that they inject some professionalism in it and apply some digital kind of skills into the sector of agri-food systems. Yes.
Richard, talk to me. Talk to me. My question was, what is happening on the ground? You told me that first people went into hands-on farming and they were not getting engaged throughout the value chain into processing, packaging, distribution, and all that.
Yes.
So would you comfortably say that there is a shift now? Because I've got another Richard who is online, Mzee from Malawi, who is within Michigan State University. Professor Richard Nkandawari says this conversation is a big elephant in the national development agenda. You better do justice to it. Don't just talk from your armchair. Make it real, Richard. Make it real.
Yes.
So what are the bottlenecks? What are the bottlenecks?
Yes, first, the first bottleneck towards shifting towards what we actually need, that will address the needs or the demand of the society. The first thing is lack of information, the ability, the low capacity the youth have. There's a need of refurbishing or letting the youth access to good information, ensuring that, for example, they can make use of weather patterns that are always directed by the Department of Meteorology. They can make use of whichever skills and they got in school and apply it. But I would say that currently, let me just list that some of the bottlenecks is one, the ability, which is a lack of capacity. Two is poverty. Then three is capital. Most of them lack capital.
Lack of information, poverty, you said, and
yes,
financing.
Yes, financing.
All right. Talk to me about those. Why are they a challenge and who should do what about them?
For example, the financing, I can say that, yes, a youth might be, let me use this word, pregnant of good idea, good initiative. He wants to have a good policy structure that will enable, or it will enable her to move up to the highest level of production. But here, there's a huge element, so-called capital. Just the infrastructure of the business, the infrastructure of the agri, of the farm alone takes a lot of money. Even if they access, sometimes they access money from these banks and all that. Then the money they get just ends at the infrastructure, making it, but it doesn't move them forward. And then also there's a question of now, they go into what we call Shylocks, which has exorbitant interest rates. So it finishes youth source. So I go to the next stage, where the other bottleneck, which is the capacity. Most youth lack capacity. Some of them are still.
That's your fourth one, Ruto. That's your fourth one. It was lack of information, poverty, financing. So I'm adding capacity to that, to the list.
Yeah. So capacity means most of them, when they engage in agriculture, they even lack some of, they don't even have the capacity. Like they don't understand what some of the challenges in the farm. For example, let me take an example of a poultry farmer, for example, or somebody taking growing crops. They don't even know at what stage should they vaccinate their crops, their poultry, at what stage should they apply what. So there's actually need to ensure that there is a lot of agricultural extension officers working one-on-one, what we call on the job, on the farm, doing together with them to enable them have the capacity.
Richard, I'm going to come back to you because in my introduction, I said this is the time for the youth because they're educated, they're digital savvy, but you are taking me back to those youth of the 60s, these oldies who were waiting for an extension agent who used to put a pen behind their ear and read out from a book what they should do. I'll come back to you because I'm keen to know what are you doing yourself and where are you in the value chain? But now allow me to cross over to Malawi.
Yes.
Sarah, Richard has told us that lack of information, lack of capacity, those are issues that sit squarely within your mandate where you boasted that as educators, it is our role. And I'm sure you are chaining them in numbers out of Luana and putting them in the street. Can you tell us what set of interventions or policies can be put across that can be effective in catalyzing productive youth engagements in the support of resilient agri-food systems in Africa? What are you doing as a university, given the challenges that Richard has amplified?
Okay, thank you. I'll take you back just a little bit. I think if we reflect back to maybe about 10, 12 years ago, we look at during that time, there have been a lot of policies that have been developed both at international level, regional level, and national level. And all of these are calling for active engagement of youth. Therefore, it's now not really very surprising that on the ground, we have a number of interventions now that are responding to these policies that were developed. So I wanted to bring out one or two other things. So when we look at these interventions, the way they have been implemented and how they have been designed, they reflect the different angles of this engagement that my colleagues have talked about. So when we look at the food system, we look at the youth that are being engaged in various ways from right away from production, maybe others are into distribution, a few of them, they're into utilization, disposal, they are the ones consuming, and that's what is bringing in the how they are being engaged in the food system. And the reasons why they are being engaged in the food system are now varying. Others are into there because it's a livelihood for them. Others, they're just there because socially, biologically, they are youth. They're supposed to eat certain foods, things like those. So now I want to reflect that moving now from these policies that have been talking about youth engagement, and the youth are being engaged in various ways. Now that's where we are seeing a gap. The words are there that yes, we are engaging the youth, but then there's a gap in terms of the felt needs of the youth to connect with the interventions. So I will reflect, as an example, I'll reflect on the skills gap and the lack of information maybe that has been mentioned. And there was also another issue that was mentioned about youth maybe not getting interested in the agric itself. So when you look at the skills, on one hand, we're looking at the youth, we say, oh yeah, the youth are they really have that potential. And yes, we know they are the dividends and they have all these ideas. And here we are, on the other hand, the same youth are now crying out, we do not have skills. And the policy is saying, well, we need to engage the youth. So the question would be, are we providing the skills that are indeed responding to the need for that particular youth? Because if we listen to that youth, they'll probably be able to guide, say, oh yeah, the way you are teaching us like this, no. It's not really helping us in any way. You may think you are teaching, or you may think you are skilling us, but you are not doing it. Another example would be, we're saying the youth are not interested in engaging in agric. And then on the other hand, it's coming out, no. They are interested unless the terms are attractive. So the issue is, what is this attractiveness? So I'm trying to bring out the aspect that, yes, the words are there, the documents are there in terms of the policies, and the youth are there. They are energetic, they have the passion, they have the ideas, but there's a mismatch in between. And this mismatch is what is resulting into the interventions that are currently there to miss the point.
All right, Sarah. So I like the theory and the intention. I'm going to come back to you and ask for live examples of what you have done to reorient Luanda to be the center of excellence that churns out the youth that are engaged in building resilient agri-food systems for Africa. I'm keen to go to the foundations. I love foundations because they're set up for a purpose. And they are big on the numbers game. They want to count their beads at the end of the year and say, we put so much money, we grew this in terms of people, and we are proud to say when you go to country X, we can put our flag, but we never put our flag because our work speaks for us. Let me start with you, Betty. What role can foundations and donor agencies play in enhancing youth-focused efforts that advance resilience in Africa's agri-food systems? And can you give me live examples of what the Rockefeller Foundation is doing? Over to you, Betty.
Thanks so much, Lindiwe. And what I can say is that the foundations and donor agencies have a very significant role to play. And I just want maybe for this session just to highlight 4 roles which I see are very important. So, and one of the things as the Rockefeller Foundation, you know, the Rockefeller Foundation is an old foundation with a mission to promote the well-being of humanity. And so one of the things I see as a role is provide catalytic investments on funding to spur, to test and pilot innovations. And because we are never there for like a very, very long time. So beside us, you know, for example, catalyzing investments is to also facilitate governments and private sector to scale up those innovation and to those up. So that's one of the roles that I see, catalyze funding to spur innovations. The second thing I see is providing funding and building seed capital products and competitive incubation grants for young people. One of the panelists on here just mentioned non-returnable grants. I do believe, especially for new innovations which have not been tested, the philanthropy can risk their capital to try things. If they work, we say we tried. If they don't work, then we say we tried and failed. But in most cases, these things work. And then the third component, and I've really heard it mentioned over and over again, is support capacity building, whether this is through technical assistance and mentorship programs. And we do have very, very good examples of foundations, for example, MasterCard Foundation that is doing an excellent job in terms of facilitating youth and many other foundations. And the final one I can talk about is supporting new generation of Agri-Tech innovations. I think, Lindiwe, when you just said you don't want people to take you back to the many years, but we do know that this generation is also coming up with very, very interesting innovation, Agri-Tech innovations that can make it easier for young people, you know, like to be able to access labor saving and transformative technologies, as we've just had a few minutes ago. The young people don't want to carry maybe a hoe on their backs, but there are innovative ways of them to get engaged, whether they are getting engaged in the value addition or even when they are there, the young people. I know, for example, the Facebook Foundation has supported the Africa Farmers Club, which is an online platform that has 150,000 young people from Africa who are farming. They may not be farming maize and beans, but they are doing very high value crops. And we have seen them, you know, really make a change. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Betty, for giving us that long list of the value add that foundations bring. I'm going to come back to you on the examples of fine. That's what you bring out of your top list of 5 things that you do. Can you give me one example of each where you really have shined in those interventions where the Rockefeller Foundation is involved? But allow me to go to Africa. I am so proud, you know, when we look at these African-led foundations, you just say, wow. For a long time, it was we talk, we beg, we ask, but now we have our own champions who stand up to the world and say, I'm giving back to Africa. Onye, tell me more. What does the Tony Elumelu Foundation bring to the subject of building resilient agri-food systems in Africa through the youth? You boasted about being youth yourself. So take me to your world in your foundation. What is different from your foundation to the Rockefeller Foundation that Betty has just painted for us?
Thanks so much. I mean, off the top, I think that the first difference is that it's indigenous, right? It's Nigerian owned and Nigerian run with an Africa focus. Here at the foundation, going back to, you know, what Kwame and Richard had mentioned earlier in terms of interest. So we've currently funded, so for those who aren't familiar, the Tony Elumelu Foundation gives $5,000 grant funding to entrepreneurs each year. So we have a commitment to support 10,000 entrepreneurs, and we support 1,000 each year. We're currently in our 6th, 7th year of the program, and then each year we get additional partners to come on board and also fund entrepreneurs with that $5,000 funding. One of the interesting things, however, for us here at the foundation is that we have currently funded close to 11,000, and approximately 28 to 30% of those entrepreneurs are actually in the agriculture sector, right? So in agribusiness or doing something along the lines of on the agriculture value chain. And so for us, having this conversation is always interesting because on one hand, people say, oh, we have youth who aren't interested, or the youth who are interested because they aren't literate or because they don't have, another option. But, from our program, we're seeing that, again, this is a program that does require you to have, to be able to read and write and to be able to, present your business plan and your business ideas and, to be of a certain education level. And so we find that most of the entrepreneurs who are in our program are in that agri sector. And so what does that tell us here? It means that, there is still that interest, there's still, passion for agriculture and people saying we want to get into this. The challenges, however, that we find that they have, not just in Nigeria, but across the continent, again, is on training, right? With access to markets, being able to connect to markets across the continent, being able to access equipment that they need, and then also just, gaps in the value in the agriculture value chain where things are very, very irregular across the country. And so those are some of the challenges that we're finding. But overall, sorry if I'm rambling, Wendy, I see your face.
No. I love the gospel. I mean, I'm just looking at the numbers. So correct me if I'm wrong. It's 50 million at 1,000 youths per year, each one getting $5,000 to be able to achieve their goals. And so far, 30% of the cohorts you've had over the years are into agri-food systems.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. You've said there are problems, but you are going until you get your 50 million. I want to take a break and give my panelists a chance to think about, I'm going to come back to you. I'm starting bottom up to where I started. I'll start with the foundations. And I want to know, we are not in this for play anymore. We want results. What is the one big thing that you have done to put a smile on the face of youth? Be it an investment, be it a curriculum, be it a hands-on project. And this is for all my panelists. As you think about that, I want to greet Jose Jackson, who has joined us from the Alliance. I want to greet Roderick Moale, who is glad to be here from Malawi. I want to greet someone special from a high school in Chicago who is joining us and wants to understand. Andrew Patterson Leap, you are most welcome. Ola, I owe Kwame an apology. You've just corrected me that all these old folks are youths because they are young at heart. So Kwame, you've been promoted. You are a young man. And I want to welcome Lisa, who is also assisting us, but is happily joining and participating. John Bonnell, thank you for joining us from NSU. So back to my panel. What have you done? What have you done? Because people are complaining in the audience. They say agriculture is rarely presented as a profitable, dignifying career in our curriculum. Sarah, that one is yours. Tell us what you've done. Someone is saying, well done, moderator. You've hit the nail on the head by addressing digital driver needed for today's agriculture. Can someone in the panel give me examples? Abdullah, thank you for joining us from Ethiopia. Thank you, Endesho Belem, for joining us. Keep the comments coming in. I'm warming up my panel. because we're going punchy. We're done with the background. We're done with the theory. Give me live examples. What have you done, guys? Otherwise, we're going to get a different panel. You must have done something different in your career to bring a smile on the face of youth by making sure they contribute in building resilient agri-food systems. Betty, over to you.
Perfect, Lindy. I hope my example is going to leave all of us excited. And I want just to provide a little bit background on what problem we are solving for. We know that globally, the consumption of animal protein has increased by 9% in the last 5 years. And this is expected to grow by about 37% by 2030. But we also do know animal production, the biggest challenge is the cost of feed, which is really high. But we also do know that there are emerging innovations, for example, on insect-based feed as compared to protein sources such as soy or the small pelagic fish. And we also do know one of the insects which is being advocated for, and really a lot of research work has gone into it, is the black soldier fly, which has a protein content of more than 40%. And now, why is the black soldier fly important? Is because that it feeds on organic waste and turns waste into what we call the gold. And the larva is harvested and processed for animal feed. So knowing that innovation, and it goes back, Lindy, to the 4 points I raised, we need catalytic funds, you need technical assistance, you need innovations. What is that the Rockefeller Foundation has done, and what really makes me smile when I see all the youths that we are working with getting very excited? We have partnered with ICIPE, the International Center for Insect Physiology and Ecology, to test different models of scaling these up, because so far the research has stayed in the lab, and so we are taking the technologies from the lab to the land, and we are looking at business models for scaling up insect-based as an alternative for poultry and fish. So in the last 2 years, what are we happy about? We have seen more than 1,000 farmers trained. We have also seen, we have supported capacity building. There was a lot of discussion around capacity building and infrastructure development. We have also supported more than 40 SMEs who have begun production of the black soldier fly. And our observation is 90% of those SMEs are actually owned by the youth, and about 60% of them is female. So 4 things I want to say. Why are the youths getting so excited with a new, what we are calling, I'm calling it a new gold? I think 4 things that I see are really bringing a lot of excitement to the youth. First is government are providing enabling environment for production and processing of animal insect-based feed. We have seen, for example, Kenya and Uganda now have protocols of production. Rwanda is working on its strategy for insect-based feed. That's the first point. The second point, which I think is an elephant in the room, we haven't addressed it well, is a question of market. If you plant onions or tomatoes, there are chances that you may not always get a structured market. But in this case, we started by understanding whether the market is really willing to buy the insect-based feed from the farmers. And when we had a conversation with the millers, they were asking us, I remember one milling company asking me, give me 40 metric tons of dried larvae per month and I'm gonna buy. So the market is there is so big. Now, raw materials, this is one enterprise where we don't have a problem with raw material. Kenya, for example, we generate 2,500 metric tons of organic waste. Where does it go? It goes to the landfill. And maybe 2 other points I can mention is that the multiple products that you get from the black soldier fly, because you're getting the larvae, which is turned into protein. At the same time, you're getting what you call frass, or which is a fertilizer, which is coming from the investment. And finally, youth that we are working with are very, very smart. They are digital youth. These are people who are doing a lot of research. These are people who have formed a WhatsApp group where they're exchanging knowledge and learning from each other. And this is a group that is looking at registering itself. And so a most recent visit, and I have to mention this, I visited one of the entrepreneurs by the name Nicholas. Nicholas is a graduate student with a degree from one of the universities. And last year he decided to start his farm. He's collecting waste from the market, And Nicholas is producing about 1 metric tons of larvae, and he has also branded his bags. And for me, when I look at him and the very many Nicholases that I meet every day, it just puts a smile on my face. And so what I can say is that let's continue to innovate. Youth are looking for something that can quickly turn around money. Within 6-7 months, the youth starts, may not be a lot of money because the level of investment also varies, but they're also looking at something which has a market and which can bring money in the shortest time possible. Thank you.
Wonderful story. Don't worry, panelists, you each have 3-4 minutes to share the big picture story, because Professor Mkandawire is waiting. He says, this is the big elephant in every government, president, minister of agriculture. Can you help us dissect it so that they can go on and scale up the Nicholases who are making money from waste? Thank you so much, Betty. Thank you to the Rockefeller Foundation. Over to you, Onye. You are giving $5,000 and you have 30% of your beneficiaries in the agribusiness sector. Give us one shining Nicholas so that we see a smile and say, wow, the minister's in the room. Here is a challenge. Can you take this to scale? Over to you, Onye.
Thanks, Lindiwe. I think one of the great things about our program, before I touch on an example, is, beyond the 5,000, and once the program is done, we're constantly thinking of ways to, additionally support our entrepreneurs in terms of, that much more specific sector support that we know that they need, and, sometimes we aren't able to provide to them. And so this year we connected with, and I'm sure some people will be familiar with, the Clinton Development Initiative, working very specifically with small-scale farmers. And so we, acted as a connector for some of our alumni across Malawi, Uganda, and Tanzania to say, okay, you're running agribusinesses, right? The Clinton Development Initiative is also working in this sector. Is there a way that your business, your business ideas and the work that these farmer communities are doing can intersect, and it becomes a symbiotic relationship? And so far that has been going very well, and very exciting, the reports that we're getting. And there's an example of a guy in Malawi, Clement Kandodo, who is creating manure from organic waste. And so they showed us like all of the pictures where he connected with the smallholder farmers, and they were so excited to have organic waste fertilizer at a much more affordable rate. And they're now in conversations about coming up with credit facilities that will enable them to buy this product. There's also another lady who recently just passed away, unfortunately, Mavis. She sits in Botswana and is able to, her farm is called Chandana Farms, and fully run by women. Her operations are fully run by women. Was turning, I think, approximately like $1 million monthly in profit, producing soybeans. And she also, was able to get additional funding for her farm as well. And, again, still tracking, still checking in to make sure that even now in her passing, it doesn't go defunct, or it doesn't die off. So those, those are some of the stories that we have. But I think also just for us, in terms of, coming back to the policy side, because I think that that's also a part of this conversation here, right? Is to say, okay, how are we engaging with the policymakers? How are we engaging with the government? Because again, none of this work can really happen in silos of the private sector. And so for us in Nigeria recently, we just got into an agreement with the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. And so they are very big on pushing non-oil exports, and finding ways that we can support that, and working with them, a bunch of those entrepreneurs who will be essentially exporting their produce are also agribusinesses as well. And so for us, it's saying, okay, we've given you this money, we've given you this $5,000, we're supporting you, we're connecting you with mentors in your program. well, how are we finding other opportunities? How, when other organizations come to us as well to say, we would be interested in working with agripreneurs, who can we reach out to, acting as a connector and saying, okay, we've done what we can do, which is, to fund, but we will connect you to those who, as we like to call it, can give you additional value add to your businesses. So that's how we approach it here at the foundation.
Thank you so much, Onye, and our condolences on Mavis. May her soul rest in peace, but her good work, $1 million out of soya beans in a desert in Botswana, amazing. May her soul rest in peace and her work forever shine for the good work she has done. But I think what you've just helped us do, ladies, between Onye and Betty, is to unpack a better understanding of what foundations are. You plant a seed, you water it. When the tree is growing, you find fruits and other babies for growth. You don't abandon. You bring in other partners who can add value, bring innovation, you expose. You take your grantees to another level through exchanges so that they grow and can create businesses that can grow other people. So well done and congratulations for that. You're talking about young people, you're picking your jewels. Allow me to go to a young person. Richard, have you ever felt the warmth and heat from Nigeria, from Tony Elemele, from Rockefeller Foundation? Are these people real? I mean, they pick just one out of a million, and where you are sitting, what are the jewels that can bring a smile to your face? You still owe me a response on what you do in your day job, not the servicing of the organizations. Where are you in the value chain, Richard?
Okay. Yes, I'm across the value chains, all across all the stages of the value chains. I'm not stationed at one. Okay, I will say that yes, I may not say more about, I would say partly about what organization does, but, and also what I do as an individual. I will start by saying that as the organization, we have been trying as much as possible to build the capacity. We have been addressing the challenge of skill, as we say that there's this problem of skill and lack of skills. So we've been taking we've been carrying out exhibitions, bringing together youths to come and showcase what they're doing and the innovations. And we always insist that the innovation should be from them, should not be from somewhere. We encourage them to come up with their own intrusive innovations. And by doing that, we have seen a lot of youths coming into it, enjoying it, and also learning from others. And the other thing we've done is now, sometimes we take youths to farms, some of farmers who have grown to a great extent, so as to enable them to see that it's actually possible. It's possible to move from one value chain to the other one. So we've been taking youth to some farms that have gone through all the stages of value chain. That's one thing. The other thing is that I've always been sending a message of hope to youths most of the time. Given that if you look at in our areas, for example, the land is shrinking. And if a youth still applies the traditional method, saying that my grandfather or whoever had a big land, a lot of animals, and with that mindset, a youth might be demoralized and say that, how will I do this if I don't have a big land? What the example I always use is that if I look back at my father and my grandfather, the number of animals they had and the number of products, you find that a whole herd of almost 200 cows will produce maybe 10 liters or 20 liters of milk. But my one cow, which is fed within a 2-plot acre farm, just a small farm, can produce even 20 liters of milk, the same number of, the same amount that a whole herd could produce. So that is, it shows that it's not the amount of space, but it's the amount of space in our heads. not the physical one. If you have enough space in your head, we can produce more despite the shrinking lands that we have. That's the word I always use.
So Richard, are you a dairy farmer?
Yes, I'm a dairy farmer.
That's what I've been waiting for throughout. I said, bring the Richard into the, because I know my Kenyan friends, you are into farming big time, but you take it as an other job. So yes, thank you for building capacity of youth. Thank you for taking them for show and tell to learn from others, but thank you for being a farmer yourself to feed Kenya and to feed Africa and the world. Thank you so much. I can see the smile on your face when we talk about your dairy animals. Keep shining. Allow me to go to Sarah. There's been a lot about you're not training us right. The markets are a problem. We get these agripreneurs who are in business and they have not checked out what it takes. Sarah, what are you doing in Loana? Are you addressing these issues? Have you ever put a smile on the face of youth to say, when I grow up, I want to go to Loana University, and when I finish, I want to be in resilient agri-food systems in Malawi? Over to you, Sarah. Sarah, I think we just lost her there. To gain time, when she comes back, she got the question. I think it was an issue of pressing buttons. Sarah, are you there? If Sarah cannot unmute, we will go with the same question to Kwame. Kwame, you are sitting at a global stage. Can you tell us how you put a face and what you've done and where you've done it?
Well, anyway, thank you for that question, and thanks to the panelists also for those insightful comments earlier on. Anyway, I would say that from my role as a policy analyst, I've been a strong advocate for youth, and I've used much of my research work to inform different kinds of policy at different levels. So I've done that with foundations. So for example, some of the work that we did in 2016 was particularly instrumental in informing Mastercard Foundation strategies on how to engage with youth in the agri-food system in different countries in Africa. Some of that work also in 2018, I had collaborated to lead a report with the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. And that report was very instrumental in shaping funding that was made available to support agricultural education from Congress as part of the Global Food Security Reauthorization Act, which was passed in 2018. And then I've also done some work with GIZ and also with a number of USAID projects. But anyway, I just do not do just research work. I'm also actively engaged in doing capacity building work. And one project that I'm very excited about is what we call the Young Innovators in Entrepreneurship and Leadership Development work.
Tell us more about that one, because I can see the smile on your face. We want to unpack it and understand it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so anyway, this particular project came up as a result of recognizing that entrepreneurship can be a very lonely experience for young people, especially those that are operating within the agricultural value chains. And typically you have a situation where when we talk about those who are disinterested in agriculture, it is those who are most educated are the ones who shy away from that. So this particular project focused on those graduates, those that are going have tertiary education, who are interested in working, who are operating within the agricultural value chain. And the idea was supposed to help capacitate them to take advantage of opportunities that are within the agricultural value chain. And what we did was we initially did an assessment to learn more about what are some of those success factors, what makes these people successful, and then what are some of the barriers that these people face. And then based on the barriers that we encountered from our research work, we end up designing a capacity building training for those that we were working with in Ghana and in Tanzania. And then we also, and that entailed teaching them about financial management, about even human resource, recruiting of staff, and a wide range of topics that we identified. And then we also organized convenings that brought agripreneurs who were in Ghana to meet with agripreneurs who were then in Tanzania. And through that kind of collaboration, we had situations where some of them even signed MOUs to be able to collaborate and to learn to share technology. So for example, there was this agripreneur in Ghana, Jex Pepe, Samuel Jan, who then collaborated with another person who was working with Pepe in Makaru Agro Limited in Tanzania. And that collaboration enabled the one that was operating in Tanzania to now move its production just from private production, just producing pepper and drying them, to then going ahead to process them. And we were also able to provide them with some capacity building grants to address some capacity gaps that they were experiencing within their operations. So those are some of the work that I have done in this particular space.
Excellent, excellent. Talk about follow through in what you planned. Sarah, are you back? Sarah,
yes, I'm back.
Please respond to the question you were about to respond. Go ahead.
Yes.
We want to hear what Luana is doing. Where have you put a smile on people's faces?
Okay, I'll share about one aspect that we're doing at Luana, and as a university, this is under the business incubation. And what we are working on is leveraging on partnerships. So what we did was we looked at what Luana does, and we knew we have expertise in terms of agriculture. And here we're trying to open up space to youth out there to join and be able to use this expertise at Luana, but now not only as those youth that have got the academic, that have reached the academic requirement to undergo the program, but we piloted on now opening up to youth that have got a business idea. So we tried to work with those that wanted to do commercial farming. So what we did was we worked with partners. We got farming contracts to do seed production, and we looked at the resource that we have within Luana. Luana has got a farm, which is a commercial entity, and we were given 50 hectares of land at the farm. So we had these youth that were put into groups, and we said, we are not going to say we are going to do experiential farming with you, but we said we want to go through the process of actually producing this seed and delivering it to the market. So that's the aspect of the incubation that we did. So we worked with them throughout the season, and we said at the end of the season, because we knew that what we want to do is to, one, de-risk them in terms of getting them to get the skill of doing it, and also change their mindsets that, you know, you cannot only be saying we want some funding for this idea, but we say, let's go through this together. At the end of it, we are going to share what we're going to make out of this. And luckily, we had some good rains for last season, and we managed to grow maize seed. That was, I think, of 20 or 30 hectares. And then we had groundnut seed, and we had soy. And out of that, they made some revenues of about 45 million Malawi Kwacha plus. Now, the interesting bit now came in afterwards. As I'm talking to you now, we have now these youth groups that now have started asking, okay, so how much did we make? How much is that part of profit that is coming to us? And this is because we said, this was the first time we're doing this with you. So we want for you to actually reflect on what is going to go on. The little that you have made, you can no longer say that I do not have something to start with. I'm waiting for somebody to give it to me. But here you are, you sweated, and here it is. That's something that you have made. And believe you me, this time around, they even looked at the groups that they had, because we noted that there were some youth that were not, that active in the past season. So we asked them that, what do you want us to do with these, your fellow group members that were not doing much? Because now we want to transition to the second season. The little money that you have made, and luckily we had a commercial entity, a bank that came in actually and awarded some money to those that presented a good plan to implement in the next season. So now the interesting bit came when we asked them, what should we do with your fellow youth that, were not that active? And there was an overwhelming response to say they were not interested, just chuck them out. And
Wow.
For us, we were saying, oh, no, maybe let's think about it. Maybe we might not need to do this. But it was now very interesting for us that, number one, we had actually managed to excite them, but we excited them in a way that we treated them as partners. And the other thing was that we did not do this just as Luana alone, but we managed to do it because we had other partners that came in and they did their role. And for that, that's what we saw, that was the effective partnership, because the youth were then a partner as well in that whole process. And each one of the parties were looking at something that they were going to get, and they were able to put in a lot of effort in it. So for us, that we're looking at that as an aspect of, using what universities have to actually engage in a different way.
Excellent example that is, and congratulations, Luana, because there's nothing that beats that evolution from producing maize for food and going into seed maize, because already you are creating business opportunities, but you've also included not just the students, but other partners that can then pick them up and grow the students. Well done. I hope to our audience, this is putting a smile on your faces, in that we've chosen a panel of doers whose day job is to make sure that they plant the seed in the African agri-food systems so that they bring resilience. Let me go to the charts and find out. Molly Abende says we cannot mobilize an uninformed population. Currently, there's very agricultural graduates in Africa, few. I believe incentivization of agriculture, food security courses by government towards the youth will go a long way in increasing knowledge about agriculture. Sure. We need more who go through the Luanas and other universities. And Mike says Betty has been working with amazing youth in agripreneur space, particularly around interesting technologies like the black fly soldier. It looks like the black fly soldier has a lot of armies around, because we've had postings promoting that initiative. Well done, Rockefeller. Raymond Musima, Program Manager, Michigan Fellows, is happy to be with us. There's Jane also sharing a link to resources that our youth, and the capstone webinar from AgriLinks that Dr. Lulama is managing. The landscape analysis on youth, women, and market systems development, agriculture, and supporting markets includes excellent examples and considerations of way forward at each stage of the program cycle to address youth inclusion. Yesterday, I was in a panel when I said, you have to look at the value chain and at every stop say, where do we bring the youth? And there are adequate examples now, including those that have been posted here, where we can then say, what are people doing in other countries? What can we adapt so that we make our own countries? And I'm happy people are posting these resources, and thanks to these side workshops at the World Food Prize, because we are learning, we are sharing, we are also showcasing best practices. Dr. Nwandi, lecturer at Nigeria, is also happy to be with us. It's amazing the work you're doing with the fly. It's getting a lot of accolades. Thanks to the panelists for the presentation. I appreciate the comment on the making agribusiness active. We have more who want to join. The Black Soldier Fly again gets more accolades. The Black Soldier Fly. By the end of this panel, we will all want to see and touch this Black Soldier Fly and go into business, because we see it's putting money in the pockets of other people. There is a report on catalyzing insect-based feed in Kenya that Betty Rockefeller Foundation will be launching soon. So please, audience, look out for it. And a shout out for Ruto for the work that you're doing. Well done, keep going. Very interactive session. I am coming back to the panel. We have a lot of comments in our chat. Thank you to our audience who are all enjoying this session. That should put a smile on my panel. Panel, we have 15 minutes left. You started by telling us who you are. You started by telling us about our wonderful organizations you work for. You also handpicked your cherries and put them on the cake. I just want to now dig deep into the cake. What are the constraints that you are facing, and what have you done about them to climb these big mountains? I want to start from the top, because there are others who are listening to us who think, oh, I want to join this army. I want to help the youth. I want to make sure I do something that will put a smile. Can you each give me one big constraint where you say, if we had more of this, the youth will be shining in their role on building resilient agri-food systems in Africa? I'll start from the top. Kwame, what would you say is a must-do where you are sitting?
Thank you, Lindiwe, for that question. I would say that one must do is we may need to change the narrative on the way we think and talk about youth, which is not just looking at them as subjects of intervention or subjects of research, but viewing them as agents, as partners, and co-creators who can help bring about the solutions that is needed. And that will need to be reinforced at various levels, starting from the household level. Typically, we do not talk about families' role that they play in shaping the mindset that young people have. How do we educate even families to reinforce the voices of young people? So that'll be at that level. At the local government level, in our schools, and as well as in regional meetings, is how do we strengthen that voice? Personally, I believe that empowerment involves agency, and agency will mean that we strengthen their voice, allowing them to take the decisions, and helping them to be able to act on that, in addition to giving them the resources that is needed to do the work that they have committed themselves to through their decision making.
Okay, so for you, Kwame, we need to give the youth agency, and we have to give them the resources. Who is we? Who should do that?
I think it's a collective effort. It's a collective effort, and each
call them out. Call them out.
I started by talking about families, for example. There are situations of individuals that have started entrepreneurship projects. And I'll give you an example that we have an entrepreneurship project here where we support young people in our program to embark on entrepreneurship endeavors. And there was one person who came first place, had an excellent project. And for a long time, she was not following through to practice that. When I contacted her, the response was that her parents think that she's not capable of doing that, and that is why she has not been able to follow through that. So I had to explain to her that your mother only sees the little girl that she puts on the plane about 4 years ago, and you will have to let her know that you are no longer that little girl that she puts on the plane 4 years ago. And that is what encouraged her to follow through. And that's an example of how families shape mindsets, and how do we get them to now give them the resource and the space to be able to move. So that is one. I think there are a lot of also structural challenges that are involved. And I want to say this from the standpoint that the challenges that you faced do not exist in a vacuum. They are part of structural challenges that exist within the areas where they are. So when it comes to unemployment is as a result of the low levels of jobs that are available. Young people are just disproportionately affected because they lack the social skills, they lack the social network, and they lack the experience to be able to access those jobs. So one important approach is to ensure that the number of jobs at the highest level, the number of jobs within the economy is expanded. And that is one thing that we advocate with using agricultural productivity growth, which is a precursor of the structural transformation process, as a means to be able to expand the overall jobs so that jobs could expand for young people. But then there are also what we call the youth-specific challenges, which has got to do with skills set. The youth stage is a stage of skill building, and that is where training becomes very important. And I also want to emphasize that we do not just have to do training for training's sake. We need to make sure that we are training young people for with skill set that enables them to be able to acquire or secure jobs that may be available. But the skill set training, and I know you're looking at me for time. Yeah, but I just want to add quickly that when it comes to the training, we need to think a little bit more, be a little bit more innovative about the kinds of training that we provide them. Given that the future of work is uncertain, skill set that allows young people to be able to learn new skills becomes very important. Those transferable skills becomes very important. I will leave it here. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want 1 minute from each one of you. Over to you, Sarah, in the order in which we last spoke. What is the major constraint in your journey on ensuring that the youth are central in building resilient agri-food systems?
I would say reaching out to the rural so that you can include everyone else. And with that, it connects now with the issue of the investments into the kind of skills or technologies, or how you're going to indeed reach to those rural people so that you can provide them with the space and the experimentation space that encompasses the issues that they are struggling with out there.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Richard, please unmute, Richard.
Okay, mine is in form of a statement that going by the trend and the realities in Africa, that agriculture forms the backbone of our economy. And given that most governments in Africa are not even investing in their backbone, which is agriculture, then I would say that there is actually need of a spirited campaign to ensure that we rehabilitate the perception towards agriculture by the youths. This will be done by even ensuring, I will even do a lot of stringent measures of saying that we should even make agriculture a compulsory subject in our curriculum, mostly in our basic education. That will at least ensure that everybody participates in the near future in doing a lot of agricultural activities.
But Richard, when I have a problem with that, because we once had that, and this is what BED labeled our agriculture when it was compulsory. The teachers at high school used that as a means of punishment. You don't perform well, you go and dig in the garden. Is that what you're advocating for?
No, it doesn't mean that it should not be put as a way of like you examinables and all that, but it should be that everybody must study it practically and be able to apply it at their homes. Yes.
All right. Okay, I hear you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's move on to the foundations now. Onye, what is the constraint that if you got some help, you could double up and scale up your work?
Thanks, Lindiwe. I think for me, it's two parts. The first really is that additional funding support. So you won't imagine the number of applications that we get each year seeking support from entrepreneurs for their businesses. And so because the foundation is, supporting entrepreneurs at that very rudimentary SME idea stage level, that sometimes banks and the bigger development financial institutions can't come in to support, there's such a huge demand and not enough supply. And so on our end, again, always seeking out additional partnerships for that. And then I guess the second aspect of it really is that political will, interest from policymakers, I think, and will covers a lot of the things that we've addressed here in terms of challenges, in terms of interest in agriculture, in terms of, pushing more young people into that space. If, governments if our policymakers are able to make it attractive and, make it investment ready so that investors come in and people are able to say, oh, this is a sector that I want to go into, right? Like, so a lot of young people are interested in tech. Why are they interested in tech? Because it has, been intentionally made attractive for them to enter it very organically, very stress-free. So I think that, in thinking about how to make agriculture more effective and more attractive, there's a huge role from the policymaker side of things as well.
Excellent. Thank you. More resources, because the targets, the 1,000 a year, you get 10 times that wanting to benefit. So can we get more Tonys in Africa who can at least maybe sponsor 100? It doesn't have to be 1,000. 100.
Exactly.
Over to you, Betty.
Exactly.
Yeah, perfect question. And I think for me, what I can say, Lindiwe, and if you allow me to just focus on the work we have done with insect-based feed, I think we have a tick on the technical assistance. We have a tick on the market and technology. What is that one thing? I think for me, that one thing is private sector investment, not necessarily more donor funds. But when you look at, for example, companies like Protix in the Netherlands, which is like the global lead in terms of IBF, they have received more than $18 million. So not necessarily in grants, but even in investment. So I think for me, what I'm advocating for, and I think is most important, is having, whether these are angel investors or some form of partnership with the local organization to help them grow and also develop financial products. Because if you go today to the bank and you tell the teller that you're getting a loan for an insect-based feed, they'll ask you, what is that? They don't even know what that is. So it's a lot of awareness raising, but I think financing at the background. We have done some studies that shows that, for you to really have a sizable unit, you need about $1.3 million. That's not amount of money which you can just raise just like that in Africa. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Money, money, money. We've got 6 minutes before we close. Allow me to read the charts and I will give you each 30 seconds. And I want you to paint a billboard for me. We are here talking about the role of the youth in building resilient agri-food systems in Africa. If I'm driving in the streets of Pretoria, I would love to see a billboard that is compelling, that will make things happen. What would you put on that billboard? I'm going to do my rounds. I'm giving you 1 minute to think and I come back to you. Think hard. The recording of today's webinar will be available on the Alliance for African Partnership Bridge, iapbridge.com, where you'll be able to get this recording. Thank you so much to our facilitators. Pauline Minyan works with CICC to help young people They've set up a program called New Generation, which allows young people to work in agriculture, more precisely in cocoa and coffee. School-based programs is a good approach, perfect area where learning for young people is shaped. Teach them young and they will stay there forever. One, the following resources: youth-led STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Follow that link. Great results, Sarah. There are many agriculture research stations in Malawi, some of whom they've idle land. So what you're doing, congratulations. That's real stuff. Keep going. Question. Thank you very much for outlining many of the assets and potential of the youth and the range of barriers. I also hear you saying that there is a strong supply side focus on a range of lacks of information, resources, skills, capacities, etc. Is the main challenge then really more so on the demand side? Does it help to train youth for jobs and opportunities that don't exist? Is it fair to expect them to make their own jobs? What would you say about necessary actions at the systems level? How do you suggest balancing both supply side and demand side? Thank you all for an important conversation. Justin says, I would suggest a bridge. We've noted that. Very nice discussions, very insightful. Key themes I've heard today: ecosystem strengthening for youth agripreneurship that goes beyond symptoms of problems and addresses them sustainably through systems change approaches, with youth creating more and better jobs, not just supply side direct services that are unsustainable and that won't serve the large demand side. Lots of comments in our chat on where we can connect, the platforms that the youth are suggesting. Molly, again, I would say we must have a multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder approach. Thank you, everybody. I'm curious to know, are there resource-focused areas or needs you have identified to advance youth needs? Lots of comments. Finally, my panel, we have 1 minute for 5 of you. So I've taken my minute, I've read from here. So, Onye, billboard, read it out for us. Open your mics, all of you, please.
Thank you. This is such a $1 million question. I mean, I think for me, it would just be, invest in Africa's youth. That's what mine would be.
Invest in Africa's youth.
It's catchy, and then it will make you stop and think. So
Betty.
My billboard will show a picture of a young person with a phone, well-educated, and it should read, I am young, I am an early adopter, show me the innovation.
Thank you. Richard.
Okay, my billboard will just be, it's time to act and invest in youth.
Excellent. Sarah.
Tired of talk, act now.
Excellent. Kwame.
Invest in and with youth, not just for youth.
Excellent panel. Thank you so much. Those are the billboards that we are leaving with you. Thank you so much to our audience, which has been active. Thank you to the panelists. Enjoy the rest of the sessions that have been well curated as part of the 2021 Norman Borlaug International Dialogue. It's been an amazing session. Thank you very much for your time and hope we've all gotten educated. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
everyone, goodbye.